Welcome to Weekend Night Live, hosted by Samuel Jacobs Abbey, where we play music, talk shows, and interviews on Be Inspired Podcast Network. Stay tuned and keep your dial on www.beinspiredpodcast.com. Don't forget to stay connected, be inspired, be unique, and be different.
Thank you, John, and again, welcome to all those listening to us, some by phone, some via the internet, podcasts and all. It's a joy to be with you, to share these thoughts with you, and we were privileged to see a thread of discussion that was going on one of the platforms when this topic was posted, and so many ideas, both for and against the whole idea of male leadership, And we deliberately titled today's discussion, Man Up, in the American Take Charge, You have to be who you are supposed to be, and so be the leader in your home. So we're going to look at different aspects of leading, but particularly leading in the home. Is it the man? Is it the man only? And why? And, its implications for our relationships and living together as husband and wife, and even for single people. How do they prepare themselves, for leading if they are expected to lead or to work with somebody who leads? So here we go. Leadership, this is not a textbook definition, but just trying to put the thoughts together. Leadership is the ability to inspire yourself and others to take positive action in life. To inspire yourself, others to take positive action in life. In other words, there's movement in it, and in our terms, we'll say something positive. It involves encouragement and all of that to achieve something. So the word leader itself, brings to mind several images and thoughts for everyone. Some are positive, others are negative, depending on the treatment, influence, and impact we have experienced from those we have known as leaders. Whether as we were growing up or in our adulthood. We've known leaders, fathers, we've known leaders, teachers, we've known leaders in school, even our prefects, vice presidents, etc., principals. We've known political leaders. So there are all kinds of images that come to mind when we hear the word leader. Whatever it is you have experienced, we believe firmly that it's a leader's responsibility to create the culture, a culture an environment, if you will, that inspires respect. The leader is to inspire others. Part of that has to be respect, love, and trust. Without that, we can't work together. And to have create this environment that enables every person under the leader to achieve their goals, whether it's individual goals or the collective goal. Now think of a leader. When you think of a leader, what then comes to mind? We're looking at the good leaders we know in our lives, and talking with different people. Here are some words we've got. See how they resonate with you. That a good leader motivates, guides, discerns. That is the ability to tell right from wrong very clearly. A good leader inspires, energizes us. A good leader comforts us also. When we're down, they just don't beat us, down or ignore us or abandon us. A good leader also sets the example. They give us something we can look up to. We hear many people say, "Oh, I look up to this person." That's a leadership quality. And then a good leader also has long-term vision, not just for today. Today we have food to eat. What will happen tomorrow? The leader thinks ahead. A good leader also protects. The leader protects, doesn't just leave the people under his care to just wander around. Protects. That means the boundaries set. Those boundaries are protected. The boundaries might be physical. They might be social boundaries. They might be emotional boundaries. There are spiritual boundaries. All these are important. And then there's one word that we often hear over and over. A good leader shows that he cares for people. There are many people, it's not that they have money, they have charisma and all that, but, they just care and people just gravitate to them. So who's a leader, really? Who is a leader? If you have a family, whether you recognize it or not, you are a leader. It doesn't matter if you're young or old, single, married, or divorced. If you have a family, you are a leader. And if you are a single parent, you are the sole leader. The challenge is often not whether one is a leader, but how one leads. And this is where, many of the problems begin. There's general agreement on who good leaders are, but who should lead, especially when we're talking about the home, the family. And one of the greatest problems facing many families today is the lack of leadership by the husband. Some of you are already cringing. The husband? You don't know my husband. Well, some husbands don't realize that God has ordained them for this role. I can feel some women are already upset about that phrase, that God has ordained husbands for the role of leadership. But other men also simply don't understand how they should lead. Still, others simply refuse to lead. Here's what how one marriage counselor put it. He says, "I see this problem over and over again." We see it also often. Most of the men that I counsel do not realize that many of the serious problems in their families, in their homes, directly result from their failure to lead. It is clear that the lack of the husband's leadership in his home will definitely create a chain reaction of marital, financial, and parenting problems. End quote. Therefore, let's consider why husbands fail to lead and how they can begin to lead wife and family. So first of all, why is there such a problem with men taking the lead in their homes today? Why is it such a problem? Reasons. First, many times, men themselves did not see good male leadership modeled in their own homes as they grew up. Today we're told 2 out of 3 African American homes are led by women. You see it in the sporting field. Guy scores a touchdown, camera pans in, says, "Hi, mom." You don't hear, "Hi, dad." So this young man is growing only with women modeling leadership for him. How is he to lead when he gets married? Now, when we come to the church, and this is focusing on the Christian side, we find some pastors simply don't teach about this, a husband's leadership role, because they fear they might be charged with, teaching or preaching male chauvinism. Now, leadership is not necessarily chauvinistic, but we'll tackle this later on in our presentation. Then third, so what we mean by this is that people just don't know. They're ignorant, And third, some husbands are just lazy and would rather, let their wives take the leadership role. Oh, she's resourceful, she's energetic. Oh, my wife is a great planner, she does X, Y, Z. Oh, she can handle everything. And so he takes a back seat and she runs the show. But then the most interesting thing is we found in our work is that the same men will complain about the wife, role, and saying the wife has usurped my authority, etc. More on that coming up. And then there are those husbands who simply give up when their wives challenge them for the leadership of the home, especially when the wives remind them of the poor decisions that they've taken in the past. Oh, you did this, you realize that led us in, oh, how about this other one? And you messed up here, and you did this. And so, for some men, the phrase we often hear is, I want peace. And so, I just let her do what she wants. But is that really peace? And then, there are those husbands also who, the phrase might be a strong one, but it's the truth, they're manipulated by their wives through tears, sometimes denying them sex, or for some constant verbal harassment, to give up the leadership. Sometimes this has to do with the woman earning more money, and so that is used as a tool to cause the man to give up any leadership role. But whichever of these, and these are just a few, I'm sure you may have your own. In our question time, you might bring some up. These are only a few reasons why there are problems with leadership, Whatever reason you might have, we think they're not valid excuses why a man should not be the leader in his home. So why are we saying the man should be the leader, the husband should be the leader? We can answer this we will take three perspectives: the cultural, the spiritual, and the practical perspective. Culturally, in many countries, it is generally expected that the male would be the leader in the home. However, we will immediately say that this has often been misused or abused to put the woman down. But, it's rejected. And you have people who say, it's backward. No, we can't keep going that way, But misuse or abuse of a position does not mean it is inherently bad or should be discarded, If we need to put things right, then let's put things right, But simply to discard it because some people have misused it does not mean it is bad. How about the spiritual? Christians generally take their answer from what, Paul the Apostle wrote about this. And you hear this a lot. At some weddings you might also even hear it. And, he stated that the husband must take the leadership. When he wrote to the Ephesian church, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is head of the wife, as wife is head of the church. This is interesting. Find this especially in Ephesians chapter 5 verses 22 to 24. Now, the word head passage, means being the chief or responsible one, and you will see that even the type of head man should be is qualified. He clearly stated that the husband's responsibility is to lead his wife, but he also said that the example of Christ as head over the church is what should guide the man's leadership. So this is not leadership the way any man wants for the Christian to speak. It is to be heard as Christ said. So in our work, for example, with couples, we point this out. So husband, how does Christ lead the church? What are the things that show us that Christ is head of the church? No, this is my standard as a husband and leader of my home. That's what leadership should look like. So if a man who is a follower of Christ wants to lead, then he looks to his Lord Jesus as the ultimate example of what true male leadership would look like. So that's the cultural and the spiritual. Now we talk about the practical. And this is, we simply think two people, consider this, two people in a car, driving someplace, with both of their hands on the steering wheel, both of them having their hands on the steering wheel, you can see will ultimately cause a crash. Each one wants to turn the wheel the way they want. This is my way is the best, the wife might say. No, my way is the best. We're both equal. We have equal rights. We have equal say. Go ahead. Everyone turns the wheel the way they want. They're going to crash. Because being equal does not mean we have the same roles. If one is in the driver's seat, yes, the other can navigate. The other can provide ideas. Why don't we take this? We can ask questions. There are men who are tyrants. We'll come to that. The wives can't ask questions. It's impractical. Being equal is not a license for chaos. Neither is it a license for domineering behavior when one person leads. God doesn't consider wives inferior, inadequate, less important, or less responsible than husbands. We often say that in the scheme of creation, if you believe in the Bible, the male was created first. So at least the man can receive respect. If you have problems with submission, all that, and you can note that we're not focusing on that when we're discussing leadership. At least in any group to proceed, there should be leadership. You can't say, oh yeah, we're all equal, nothing works. We live in the U.S. We often hear people say, this is America. We all have equal rights. Yes, this is America. We all have equal rights, but only one person gets to be president. Not everybody is president. And that provides leadership for the whole country. And yet, we all have equal rights. But there is and has to be a leader. So, cultural, spiritual, practical. Unfortunately, we all react to the negative attitudes and behavior displayed by men in leadership of the family. And therefore, we classify male leadership as either chauvinistic, domineering, or something that is archaic. Again, we would have to say that the position of leadership is not something that is determined by income, as some consider today. This has arisen partly because the norm has been for the man to be the breadwinner, as he was called, the major provider for the family in the past. US today, for example, at least 1 out of 3 married men earn less than their wives. Does that mean they should turn over leadership of their home to their wives? Some might say yes. But then, we beg, agree. Some wives ask us, why is he supposed to be the only leader? Why can't we both do it? In the end, it all comes down to a very simple and fundamental truth. Every group, family, yes. As the Americans say, the buck has to stop somewhere. the household is to function smoothly and efficiently. And how should a man lead in his home? There are different areas or levels of leadership within the family structure. This is the interesting thing. When you study it, those of you who are students of sociology will know this. The wife leads some areas of the family. Older children may also assume leadership in some areas. Generally, there's an overall leader. Is it the father when the father is present? Is it the mother? And it's the grandma who's leader in the family, who is really in charge. In a household that includes in-laws and sometimes non-family members even, there may be more levels of leadership than that. Even when you have servants in a home, the servants also have their own hierarchy, But as a husband, then you can consider yourself, if you live in this multi-level leadership kind of home, you can consider yourself a leader of leaders, So you're responsible for overall direction, vision, and leadership of the family. You have the final responsibility, so to speak. In the Bible, for example, in 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 12, we find among the qualifications for a leader in the church, in God's house. I think specifically it's the qualifications of a deacon. It says he must manage his children and household well. So let's hear that. 1 Timothy chapter verse 12.
1 Timothy 3 verse 12. Let the husband of wives ruling the children and their own houses well.
Right. So this is one aspect of it. Actually, there is even a stronger one, which we find in another aspect of this in verses 4 and 5. This is 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 4 and 5. Among the qualities of a leader, it says he should be one who rules his own household well, and that's important, having his children in submission with all reverence. And verse 5 asks a rhetorical question. For if a man does not know how to rule his own house, how will he take care of the church of God? The New International uses the word manage. If a man cannot manage his own household, how can he manage the household of God? This is even a requirement for leadership. This is more really a responsibility than a privilege, as you can soon see. An opportunity to serve your house. So, if the husband is leader, let us just assume, for now, the husband is leader. What are some of his roles? It's not simply, he's giving orders and all that. There's 3 basic roles for a husband within the family. His husband, his wife, has its own responsibilities. He's also father if they have children, father to those children. And he's also a parent, co-parents with his wife. And the different roles they play with the children. So we want to look at some practical ways to be a leader in the home, to man up and take one's position. What does it really mean to take this position? And especially for those who are singles, this is important. You need to learn what is involved in leading. Just a few ideas. We just pull these out from different experiences, and then we'll look at some very practical ways, day-to-day ways. So first of all, the leader must have a vision. You must know where you're going. Where do you want to go with your family? What do you want to achieve for and with them? You must have a vision, What will you share the woman, if you are a young man, with a woman that will come into your life, a wife? You just want somebody to marry and then what? Have a child and then what? What do you want your family to be? What will mark out your family? What are the values you want for your family? And then it's important also to remember that leader must have a following. So you must, who is going to lead? Only my wife? Oh no, I will have children. There'll be people coming through my home also. And if you have a following, you need to find out, are they really listening to me? Are they really with me? And if they're not, why not? Are you providing for them, caring for them, inspiring and guiding them? Or you've given those up already? What's your following like? Is it a following that enjoys being with you and having you guide them? Think of the things we said about a good leader. Or is it that you're just fortunate they are in your house or in your home at the moment? Then the leader must be somebody also who encourages all to do more that is right and to improve all the time. You see, when those under you only hear what is negative, that they don't do this well enough or that well enough, they're demoralized. And what is one of the things we said about good leaders? They motivate us. So learn how to encourage people if you want to be able to lead well. You have a vision, have a following, know how to lead, and then you also need to learn how to encourage people. If you are an expert at telling people what they do wrong, begin to learn how to tell people what they do right. Who do you want to listen to? Somebody who's always telling you what you do wrong, or somebody who encourages you to improve even when you have done wrong? A leader also maintains a balance. You maintain a balance. The leader focuses on what is needed rather than being pulled in several directions. What do we say? We call them scatterbrain. He doesn't know what he's about. He's confused. And, we don't know. Today he says, no, we're doing this. Tomorrow he says, no, stop doing that. You should be doing this instead. We don't know what he wants. Why should we even listen to him anymore? You have a supervisor at work like that. Say, this person is not good. You might even begin looking for another job. Unfortunately, your family might not be able to look for another father, and you never know. This is why you find women wondering, why did I marry this man in the first place, committing the rest of my life to him? So the leader that maintains a balance sets right priorities when considering life, career, family, and other responsibilities. I'll repeat. The leader who maintains a balance sets the right priorities when considering life, career, family, and other responsibilities. For the Christian, we strongly hold that family should take precedence over career and ministry. For example, note we didn't say your relationship with God. And ministry is not the same as relationship with God. Some confuse that. But your relationship with God, yes, number one. Your ministry, don't put that before your family. Okay, so then, 4 things we said, just things we need to learn to help us to lead well. Have vision, have a following, learn how to encourage, learn how to maintain a balance. I'm sure many of you will have other ideas as well. But here are some very practical ways to lead your family. First of all, we lead by showing love. The culture we live in does not really encourage men to show love except when we're thinking about romantic things. We tend to leave loving and demonstrating love to women. But if the man, and talking about the Christian man, is to lead as Christ leads the church, one of the very basic things that draws us to him is his love for us. We went past Easter not long ago, and we were reminded this is what caused Christ to come on earth to die for us. So Jesus is our ultimate example of a leader. Strong, bold, and as the Bible records, the same man who drove the money changers out of the temple could hold a child in his arms. The same person could weep over Jerusalem or weep at the grave of his friend, Enda. And so if all we do, whatever we do as husband and leader in the homes, yes, we can be strong. We talk, a leader is strong. A leader is this. Being strong does not necessarily have to do with being macho. Being bold is not in physical strength. Often it's in mental as well as emotional strength. And yes, this has to be coupled of love. Love toward all, wife included. And the leader, must also lead by initiating. Yeah, that's what to lead means. Take the initiative, Are you going to take the lead when things have to be done? Or, oh, well, it's my wife. No. We've heard men, for example, say, and we'll talk a little more about spiritual leadership, but we've heard men say, my wife is the one who prays well. What about you? And it's how a man often takes the lead. You may not be the one who prays the most in the house, but do you ensure that you pray as a family, that you pray with your wife? Will you initiate opportunities to spend time with your wife, for example? For her to say, these days you don't go out with me. Oh, is that so? Okay, let's go out. No. Initiate. And for most of us, men, I'm saying most because I know for some, the women were more the leader in initiating the relationship. For most married people, it's the man who took the initiative. So, why is it you're passing that over life? The leader also leads in providing for his family. Let's hear what Paul wrote to Timothy. Interestingly, Timothy was a young leader. So many of you listening who are young, this is good for you, And this is what Paul told Timothy when he wrote to him about providing for one's home,
1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 8. But if one does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever.
Wow. Strong words, right? We need to realize that it says you provide for your home. All right. Some of you are saying, oh, but circumstances are such that my wife earns more money than me. All right. So at least appreciate what she's doing rather than bullying her that you are the man, so you should do everything. You should decide everything that comes with the money. No. We will look at decision making in a short while. But for those of you who read the Bible, you realize that before the woman came into being, God gave the man a job. He could be working, providing for himself, And his wife is to be a helper. Yes, we're meeting couples today where the man has in a back seat and is expecting, yes, pushing his wife to be the makeup for the home. And I'm not talking about those who can't do it. There's some who just are not taking that role seriously. This is important. The man should take the lead in providing for his home. His wife is only a helper. If it so happens that the helper is bringing more than the man brings, so be it. But he should show that even in this regard, he will help in properly managing what comes in, rather than shut his wife out of managing what has been brought in. So as a husband, it is important also to be manager of the entire family. We read that earlier in First Timothy, and it doesn't mean that you do everything in your family. A manager doesn't do everything. Those of us with managers over us at work, are they the ones who do everything? Not necessarily so, but they ensure that everything gets done and gets done well. This is important, That's why we read, if a man doesn't know how to manage his own household, how will he take care? How will he manage the household of God? It's very important. So, as man, as husband, father, you are the manager of your household, just as someone who oversees and manages a business or company. And to manage well, you need to have full knowledge of what goes on in your home. This means everything about everyone, the spiritual, the financial, the discipline, this is overseeing those things. And all those practical things in the home that should be accomplished are done. It doesn't simply mean just giving orders, as we'll see when we see Jesus' example of leading. Yes, it's a lot to take care of. The passage or part of the passage that is often quoted, often you hear wives submit to your husbands. If you go through that passage from Ephesians 5 from verses 21 to 33, you will find that the man has the bulk of the relationship. Excuse me. It is interesting that all we hear is wives submit. But all the things the man should often do, and love is only one of those things. But heading, leading, as Christ leads the church, all of those were totally silent about. And this is very important. Overseeing everything, making sure everything is done well. It's a lot of work. If you go through it, you can take that as homework, so to speak. Just go through Ephesians from chapter 5, verses 21 to 3. And you will find that in those verses, the man, husband, has actually 50% more responsibility than the wife. And if we men took that seriously and really did that, I believe many of the problems we're seeing with couples will begin to fall away. The husband also has responsibility, as we've been saying, for leading spiritually. To provide spiritual direction, you need to set the pace in devotion to Christ and character development. But how should you spiritually lead your wife and children? Well, first of all, you must know what it is to be devoted to Christ. As it is said, the blind cannot lead the blind. Matthew chapter 15 verse 14, Jesus said, you cannot be blind spiritually and lead your family spiritually. So what do you know about God's word? What do you know that God wants your family to do when it comes to relating to Him? You as a man, we the men, speaking as a man myself, I need to know God's word. Then I can lead my family in God's word. So are you a man who's given himself to the word of God and prayer on a daily basis, so that when you get married, you will lead your family into the truth? Are you a man who practices what he reads? I'm not going to say preach, because many of you don't preach, but are you a man who practices what he reads in God's word? This is where true leadership begins. This is where true leadership is sustained. And there may be some of you who are complaining, oh, my wife is always doing this about church. My wife is following this prophet, that evangelist, this spiritual leader, that guru, all of that. My brother, if you played your role as a spiritual leader, your wife will not look elsewhere. For those of you who go to church, we often ask this question: what is the majority gender in church? It's the female. Where are the men? So how can they then be the spiritual leaders? And if you are not being the spiritual leader, why are you worried that your wife is seeking another spiritual leader? Be the spiritual leader in your home, and your wife will not look to another person. And maybe you don't know how. You can always start. And if she already knows it and you don't, maybe you can ask him to help you. After all, that's a role, right? To help you do it. And so what are we saying? The leader sets the example. That's another one. The leader sets. And so consider, how are you example in your home? We were just talking about spiritual leadership. Are you praying with your wife? Are you praying with your children? Or are you leaving that to your wife and children to do that by themselves? And so you're worried that your son, who's adolescent, is now not wanting to take up after you spiritually. What have you modeled for him? He's only doing what he's doing because he doesn't see father, baba, papa, daddy do the same. His voice is breaking, so he wants to do what the men do. They don't do spiritual things. This is very important. Are you an example of godliness in how you speak, how you live day to day, your personal discipline, your commitment to moral principles? You know, we need to remember, when we fail to be an example, then it's difficult. Hold others to the same standard that we have failed to live up to. And sometimes we hear this complaint. He wants us to do what he doesn't do. Ooh. Now you can see why they're not following your lead in this regard. You see, when you fail to be the example, can you be an example of honest humility and acknowledge your failure? Anyone can respect someone who personally, honestly admits failure. In fact, some of the best leaders are those who admit that they have failed, rather than cover up where they fail. And so, let us not make our lives, we the men, an example of moral compromise. Then we would declare other standards and expect that our wife and children. For example, simple. Do you speak the truth, or do you shade the truth when it suits you? But when your wife or children do the same, you are angry. If you shade the truth, well, that will definitely erode your moral leadership. So remember, as leader, you have to set the example. Now, there's one aspect of leadership that we often don't hear about: leading in reconciliation. What is this? In every relationship. And for those of you who are single, this is also important. In every relationship, there are conflicts. Taking reconciliation after is an essential aspect of moral. You need to remember that Jesus took the lead to initiate reconciliation with us. The Bible tells us that he came to seek and to save that which was lost. Luke chapter 19, verse 10. But one of our favorite verses is also from the letter of Paul to the Romans, chapter 5, verse 8. Let's hear what Paul wrote to the Romans. Romans chapter 5, verse 8. And, you'll understand why this is one of our favorites, because often we do things not according to this. Romans chapter 5 verse 8.
Romans chapter 5 verse 8. That God demonstrates his own love toward us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us.
Wow. As a man, as a husband, when do you feel like demonstrating love? Isn't it when your partner, your spouse does what you want? When it came to Jesus, he did not decide to demonstrate, that is, to show clearly. He didn't decide to demonstrate his love to us when we were of good behavior. He did so whilst we were still sinners, separated from him. Yes, conflicts separate us. But guess who should be taking the initiative to resolve the conflict? We place it squarely on the leader. This is important. So when conflicts arise, are you the one who walks away and says, "Oh no, I wanted there to be peace"? Who slams the door behind you? Do you go off to pout, sulk when your wife doesn't agree with you? Do you harden your heart or manipulate the emotions of your wife or children by your angry explosions or deadly silence? If you do this, it's a sign of spiritual immaturity, and we have to say it, childish behavior. You're not helping the situation. As a man, as a leader, you need to grow up and take the lead by humbling yourself to seek a solution. Yes, it may be your wife who's totally wrong. But guess who's to take the lead in bringing about seeking reconciliation? You take the first step with anyone in your family when there's been a conflict. Husband to wife, father to children. That's our role, man. What did Jesus say? Even though we might be quick to see the fault in other people, he said, hypocrites, strong word. First remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye, in Matthew 7 verse 5. In other words, according to Jesus, it's hypocritical for anyone to look at another person's fault before we examine our own. Strong words, And he was so, firm about this that he even said, if we're coming to give our gift at the altar and we remember that our brother has something against us, we should leave our gift there and go and reconcile first to them and then come offer the gift. Wow. That's how seriously he takes it, Is this the way we deal with the conflicts that happen in the home? Are we the ones, men, who take the lead and step forward first? Do we admit our fault and seek to resolve conflicts, or do we turn and walk away? I will show her that I'm the man. We need to begin to take the leadership in this area of our homes. And then we're coming slowly to the end. We also need to lead by serving. What? Me, leader, serving? Yes, you. Yes, me. This is another very important aspect of leadership, being the servant in our home. Now you're wondering, why should I be the servant if I'm the head? Okay. Who's our primary example, man? Jesus. Over and over again, as we say in America, he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty to serve others. Wasn't he the one who washed the disciples' feet after they'd been walking all around till the evening? Yes, the job for the lowest servant, we're told. And he did it. Fetching a bowl of water, taking a towel, and washing the feet of every one of those 12 disciples. Yes, even including Judas, who would be crucified. What did Jesus say? If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Wow. Most assuredly, I say to you, Jesus said, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who is sent greater than he who sent him. If you are a Christian, this is from John's Gospel, chapter 13, verses 14. When people talk about Christians being oppressive of women, these verses are the ones that redeem us. Say, no, if we do what is right, a woman married to a Christian ought to be one of the happiest, because the man can also serve. But what do we hear husbands sometimes say? I don't do diapers. I don't do laundry. I don't do dishes. I don't cook. Well, as one writer puts it, it's like Jesus saying, I don't do feet. I don't serve bread. But you see, yes, these tasks may not be what we want to do, but just think about it. Today, in today's world, in most homes, both husband and wife go out to work. We both come home tired, stressed at the end of the day. And what does father do? Maybe sit in the living room, watch TV, play a game. And what does wife do? She continues working, after working all day also. And we don't understand why our wives are stressed. A leader, a good leader, will follow the example of his Lord Jesus and get up and serve too. Jesus was a servant leader. What do we call him today? The Lord of all. Yes, you want to be Lord in your home? Then learn how to serve. Are you prepared to serve your family too? And this is where our cultures might clash with the biblical teaching. The leader is not Lord or boss. Sometimes he has to be servant. So ask yourself, how can I serve my wife and family? The Apostle Paul would follow Christ's lead and also remind us, imitate me just as I also imitate Christ. Can we men say these words to wife and children? And you're not married, get ready. Can you say to your wife and children when you are married, imitate me just as I also imitate Christ? Being an example is especially important if we desire wives and children to have sincere respect for us as leader in the home. This is how one author has put it. This is a question. I love his question. Do you want your wife and children to simply respect you because you are the head of your home, or because they see your godly behavior, loving actions, and walk of faith? See, very often we hear, a man complaining that his wife is not respecting him as leader. And so the man might ask his wife, don't you know I'm the head? Brothers, if you have to ask your wife or your children for that matter, if they don't know you are the head, you've already lost it. You've lost that leadership authority. And the last point we want to look at is leading in decision making. Leading in decision making. The leader is responsible for all decisions. Did you hear that? We didn't say the leader must make all decisions, but as leader, he is responsible for all decisions. It doesn't mean you have to take all decisions. Yes, you can delegate, but you can also realize and acknowledge that there are areas that are better handled by your spouse, for example. Yesterday, some friends of ours graduated, and two ladies, and they were talking about how their children had helped them on some of the assignments, like uploading the assignments with the internet and techie things. So the children they took the lead when it came to, technology things. They took the lead. The mother could say, I'm your mother. No, let me do it. Or the father could do it. One father said, I could help my wife, read through her assignments and all that. But when it came to the techie side, nope, I called my son. That's a good leader. Knowing whose qualities and abilities to harness. And guess what? Everybody was happy yesterday. And we rejoiced with them. Because mama graduated, daddy's happy, kids are happy, friends are happy. That's what good leadership does, So why is it that this is so difficult when it comes to husband and wife? Perhaps one reason is that the man is not taking leadership in other areas. And especially when the man is not a spiritual leader in his home, we have found in our counseling work, it becomes very, very difficult for the wife to respect him as a head when it comes to making decisions. For some reason, the two seem to go together. A man who's not leading spiritually often begins to lose his leadership authority when it comes to other areas. This is very important. This is very important. So let's work on this, my brothers. Let's work on this. And then we will see that there are many other areas that will fall into place. It's not easy to lead, but there are many wonderful rewards. Respect is only one of them. Sure enough, like somebody said, now I understand, a man said, now I understand why my wife gives me more meat in my food, because she knows I have more responsibility as a man. But yes, before you get that more meat, let her know you appreciate all she's doing. I'm sure there'll be more for us to discuss when we come to questions. Lots to talk about, but all told, remember this. As a leader, you do not necessarily have to do everything, decide everything. Yes, you have all the people to help you, your wife, your children maybe. Remember this. All the words we use to describe good leaders. He motivates, he guides, he inspires, he comforts, he sets a good example, has long-term vision, protects, and sets boundaries. Above all, he makes us feel loved. Let's do this and inspire all with us to know that, yes, we're ready to man up and to be the leader in our home. God bless you.
God bless you, Mr. Crabbe, for that discussion. Thank you so much for leading us. At this moment, the floor is open. I have my brother on the line who's on the radio. And then those of us on the phone line, if you do want to send your messages, you could text them to me, 781-353-8565. Those of us who are on the line, on the phone line. And then those of us listening on the radio, you could hit up my brother, and he would bring your question and ask on your behalf. So at this moment, we have about an hour. The floor is now open for questions.
Yeah, hello, I have a question.
Yes, sure.
So, that a leader should have vision. So,
Sorry. When you
speaking up,
was breaking, so if you don't mind, you can start again.
okay, so I was saying that my question is about the first point we made, that a leader should have a vision.
Yes.
So, I think generally society kind of expects like people live a particular age, and so it becomes difficult if we talk about vision, right? People actually sitting down to kind of have and think about like vision before they enter marriages. So, like, as Christians, how do we do that, like, practically? Because it looks like we kind of feel like, oh, we are of age and we have to marry, so, like, we are just marrying. But when it comes to practically sitting down to, like, think about the vision for yourself as a leader, as a man, and then of your family, like, what are some of the practical things you can take into consideration?
Excellent question. See, this is what I was saying. We need to learn what is involved in leading. Yes, to have a vision is one of them. What does a vision mean? Simply where I want to go. So, as a person, I don't have to be married before I have a goal in life. What do I want to become? It's not just an engineer. You want to become an engineer, so it's not just being even the best engineer. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to be remembered for? Okay? If you have that, basically, then anyone who comes into your sphere of influence and then close enough to become your wife, you share that vision. See, that's why the prophet Amos said, two do not walk together except they agree. Often we think of the romance side. Oh, she's beautiful. Oh, she makes me feel this way. If you're a man, you're looking at all those qualities that you want in a wife. Yes. But then, you bring her into your life, your home, to do what? To have children, and then what? The children grow, and then what? That's what we mean when we're talking vision. What do you want in your life? What do you want your family to achieve? What do you want to achieve for them? What do you want to achieve with them? You know, that becomes something you then share with this woman. She agrees. She wants to spend her life with you, working towards that goal. Great. And I'm not talking of buying houses and cars or having lots of money in the bank. No. What do you want to be remembered for? What impact do you want to have on your generation? Even let's say just your community, for example. You know? So that is what we share. You don't need to get married to be able to develop that. And if you're not married, now is the time to pray, Lord, what would you have me do with my life? And even if you're not a Christian, you can formulate this for your life. You see, Bill Gates decided that he would put a computer in every home in America. That was his vision. He's more than succeeded. And in the process became the richest man. His goal was not to be the richest man in America. But his goal was to put a computer in every home. And in the process, see where that sent him. So that's when we were saying there are other benefits of being a good leader. You know, this is important. So think of it as a person, where do I want to go in life? What do I want to be? And then as other people come in, you share that with them. The frustration that often comes in marriage is that the wife may have her own vision for life before she married. The husband also, before he married. Or sometimes they don't. And then they marry, and then they might find that the visions clash because they haven't shared and agreed to go along with whichever one. You see, so there is frustration. She wants to achieve this, he says no. She wants to achieve this, he doesn't see why it's necessary. And so there is frustration and, as we say, unnecessary conflict. But even then, if you find yourself in that situation where you didn't discuss this before you got married, and now you find yourself being pulled in different directions, husband and wife, it's wise to sit down and talk together. What would we want to do? And even with the different visions, so to speak, you might have, or goals you might have, see where you can find some common threads. At least, at the very least, agree on certain values that you would want to see in your home. Honesty, being transparent with each other, respect, showing love, there are some things you can agree that our home will be a home known for respect. Our home will be a home known for love. Anybody who hears our name mentioned, oh, this home, oof, it's a haven of peace. Oh, these people, they are secrets for education. So these are some things to think about, and I'm sure you can build on it with God's wisdom. Wonderful question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so I have a questions coming in there at this point. And please promptly, if other questions come on the line, so then I'll give you that to you. So this first question is coming actually from Ghana, from Kumasi, and he says that, give me a break. It's all about money. If you are a man and you have no money, you have no leadership in your home. Why is Mr. Crabbe trying to play diplomacy around it? It's as simple as A, B, and C. If you have no money, nobody respects you in your home. That is why God made you the head of the home. What can he say about that?
I'm sorry. There was a time when my wife made more money than me, and she respected me no less than she respects me now. At least I'm one example. And I'm not the only man I know. I know men who have been in that situation also. In fact, I can tell you about somebody who was not even a Christian. I didn't quote the Bible to him and tell him to be trans. But all I said was, you know what? I think you will find that things will improve in your home if you let your wife know the real truth. He said, no, my wife will not respect me. I said, try it and see. If you have a problem with her respecting you, I am happy, my wife and I will be happy to work with both of you. And he came clean with how much he was making, and his wife was making easily much more than he was making. He was surprised that the tables turned. She didn't even know. So why haven't you ever said it? Why didn't you say it? He was afraid she would not respect him. Yes, there are women who don't respect men, their husbands, because they earn less. And there are reasons for that. Maybe all they think about is the money. And perhaps that's why they married. It's because the man made her think that he's got loads of money. You know, maybe you have a big title at work, as I had. But big title does not necessarily translate into money. You see. So no, I'm not being diplomatic. I'm talking reality. Because every man I know who has first of all, come clean to his wife. And then, who with his wife have put their heads together as to how to manage with what is coming in and have mutually, that is both of them, respected the other regardless of who is bringing more money. They're having a happy marriage. They're not fighting over, I'm bringing more money, so I'm going to respect you less. In any case, if you are a woman listening and you're making more money than your husband and you don't respect him, guess who is married to the person who is not respected? You. So you are not doing yourself any favor. And the more, if you're a woman in that position, if you respect your husband, he's going to rebound on you positively. If you disrespect him, the negative effects you will receive as well. You know.
And Mr. Crabbe.
Yes.
Just to add to that, I mean, it could even happen that you marry and you lose your job. You lose your job. I mean, it's happened to me. Lost a job 6 months, and my wife was the one bringing the money. Doesn't mean it's not about money. It doesn't mean I lose the respect because of the fact that I lost my job and my wife is the one making the money. So, just to add to that as well.
Thank you, John. I didn't know that, but thank you for sharing. I'm going to add you to my statistics of men who have come clean. They've been transparent, honest with their wives, and when they had more money, they respected the women. See, the men who don't respect their wives when they're earning more, when they are earning less, there's trouble. And especially if, as a man, you define your authority by the money you make, I'm sorry for you. And if, as a woman, you define your husband's authority because he makes more money, I'm sorry for you. More questions, Sam.
And I think to add a little to that, I think the real problem is if you are respecting your husband because of the money, then you are not respecting your husband, but you are respecting the money, not your husband.
Thank you. Great point. who, who or what are you respecting? Your husband as a person or the money he's bringing? Wonderful. Sammy, over to you.
Sure. This is from Ohio, and it rains. Thank you so much for sharing this topic. This topic is very important. I think one of the main problems that especially young couples are having with regards to the subject is the fact that men are not that honest with their wives. And so when their wives get to know that they earn less rather than what they make for them to believe, then it creates a family crisis. So my question to you is that how will you put it in such a way that men, especially young couples, will understand the need to be open and transparent in order for them to enjoy their marriage?
Thank you so much. You know, the person who contributed last put it so well. On what do we place the basis of our respect? Is it the money or the person? What the person stands for? That's why you realize that in all these things we're talking about, the focus is not on money. It's the qualities in the person. You know, the role the person is playing. You see, that's where the focus should be. How should young couples do this? First, let me address my brothers and sisters who are single. If you're single, talk about this before you get married. Don't wait after you get married and then it's time to file taxes. So do we file together or we file separate? If we file together, now she's going to know how much you earn. And all along she's thought you earn more. In fact, we have found in our work that the more couples are open about this, the less problems they actually have discussing their finances. Start early if you're not married. If you're married already, this might be an opportunity perhaps to sit and come clean. Honest admission can earn you, yes. In the short term, your wife might be wondering, and why? Why now? And all that. But you know, one of the things women are even more perceptive about is that they can read our hearts better than our minds. And you might realize your wife may have suspected all the time, you know. And now you're going to make her more open to working with you. But remember, there are many other aspects of leadership also that you can show to let her see that, yes, even though she's bringing in more money, you are ready to work with her in your leadership role, and she's not going to take it over. Thank you. Talk about it early before you get married, and within marriage, yes, talk about it. And then put your heads together. How shall we manage together? Thank you. Go ahead. You have something?
More questions?
Yes. Before even the question, I also wanted to add that when I was getting ready to enter into marriage, I was counseled, and my counselors at 76 Club and introduced this transparency to me. My wife and I sat and discussed how we're going to run our family finances, and ever since we got married, we have always had a joint account. Even I don't even have a single account that my wife does, and we have access to. So for me, it gives strength because each other knows how much you are both making, and you are able to strategize and plan well. So I just wanted to chip in that.
God bless you.
Good. So the other question I have here is coming from Pasadena in California, and the question here is that thank you so much for this great topic. I just assure that I had time to be part of it, and happy I listened to all that Mr. Crabbe had mentioned. My question to him is that how will he explain First Timothy 2, where Apostle Paul specifically add that women should be made silent and should not teach? So how will women lead a home if Apostle Paul is right?
Okay, there are two things. Let's not confuse them. Paul was specifically talking about teaching in church, and that's not our discussion for today, so we don't want to go into that. So, but just to mention, it's not the same as speaking at home. In fact, if you want to bring it to the home, there is part of that saying they should the husbands at home. So if anything, it actually strengthens women to raise the issues even more at home, and talk about it. But it's not the same thing. For the woman leading, remember we said there are certain areas the woman can handle better, and let me take one. Some women might not like it. This is, generally speaking, women cook better than men, in many cultures. It's okay. So the man is leader. Should he insist he's going to cook? Or as we were discussing with a couple, the woman is a great planner. The man is a great cook. So we said working as a team, if you want to have, let's say, a small party in your home, you're inviting friends over. The woman is planning, the man is doing the cooking, the grilling. The friends come, they enjoy. As my mom used to say, there isn't anything written in front of the man's face, he cooked, or written in front of the woman's face, she didn't cook. But what have they achieved? Beautiful dinner party, everybody is enjoyed, people love to come to their home. They don't have to say, he did it, she did it. It's not necessary. It's our home. So we be fair to each other where the strengths are. So you can think of leadership in that regard. If my wife is better at handling our finances, should I insist that I am the man, I am the leader, so I should handle the finances when I cannot balance my own, budget, or I couldn't do it when I was single, and she's so good at it, If she handles it, the family's finances will be great. But does that mean I'm not the leader? I'm still the leader. When it comes to finance, she's the director for finance. I'm still the chief executive. I think we ought to see ourselves, men, in that light. There's some things we can't do well. We don't have to force to do it because I am the man. No. We mess up. We mess up.
Great. Thank you so much for that. So another question coming in, and this is coming from Cesar. And the question is, with marriage as the first ministry, what are the practical steps a husband can take to be his wife's pastor or primary spiritual leader?
Be the spiritual leader in the home. Steps you can take. Take the leadership in having devotion with your wife and children. Read the word of God with your wife at home. Find time to read and study the word of God with your wife. Find time to pray with your wife and children. That is the practical way to be the leader. And whatever you are learning, you practice it. You don't just read the word of God for the sake of reading it, and you don't practice what you read. Those are the ways you can be the practical leader in the home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, another question, Bernard, and says that I live overseas, work out with my wife and kids. How do I be that leader in my marriage? She doesn't believe anything I tell her, especially in the area of money. She feels I don't love her enough, and I feel she doesn't respect me enough.
So he's overseas, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, it's overseas.
Okay. So the first issue here has to do with the strain in the relationship, most probably because of the distance. That may be showing in a number of ways, and we don't have enough information on this, but I'll make a few suggestions. It is possible they are not communicating on specifics that need to be handled, and perhaps she might simply say, we need so many, 1,000 euros or pounds or dollars, and so that's all he hears. But perhaps if they would communicate on what is needed to run the home, or what are the things that are needed to be done this month, or, over the next couple of weeks, for example, then as the leader, he would get to know more about what is exactly going on. There are two verses we would like to share. Proverbs chapter 27, verses 23 and 24. Proverbs 27, verses 23 and 24. No, they talk about what we should know, and this is helpful. So we just want to share that with you. Proverbs 27, verses 23 and 24.
Proverbs chapter 27, verses 23 and 24. Be diligent to know the state of your flocks, and attend to your herds. For riches are not forever, nor does a crown endure to all generations.
The very first verse, thank you so much. Be diligent. In other words, be deliberate, actively so, and focused to know the state of your flock. So the leader as a shepherd, what's the real state of your flock? What do the kids need if they have children? What do the children need? Those are the discussions they should be having, you see. Then he will understand, for example, if his wife asks him for money, you see. And she doesn't respect me and I don't respect her. Well, that's another point there. Why aren't they respecting each other? So he hasn't told us much, but, if there were specifics, we could address that. But if they both know that they don't respect each other, then they ought to find out, why don't we respect each other? And then they can, again, as we said, put their heads together and seek ways in which they can repair that. Yes, there was someone who was coming on the line just before Sammy's last question. So if you are there, you can ask a question before we go back to Sammy.
Yes, sir. It's me, and I have a quick question. I'm calling from Virginia. You are talking about the husband help him in the home, or helping each other, the spouses helping each other. And I just wanted to ask that in a situation where, especially the husband is doing the best that he can, a lot of men, at least some of people that I know, were brought up in a home that it didn't do much. Let me say in this way, they were maybe spoiled a little bit. So there's a lot of things that they don't know how to do in the home. But getting married, he's doing the best that he can, washing dishes, doing everything that he can. But it seems that his wife doesn't appreciate it. He's complaining, you didn't do this, but he's doing the best that he can, washing dishes, taking care of the kids, doing everything that he can, just so he doesn't repeat the same mistake that his parents did, especially his father. In a situation like that, if a man or a woman finds him or herself in a situation where he or she is doing all that they can and feels that it's not appreciated, what should the person do?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a good question. Talk to your wife. Let her know that, I'm not being appreciated. And explain, we need to talk about our backgrounds also to each other all the time. let the person, I didn't know all these things before. I didn't see my dad doing all this, but I'm trying, and help me. And if the appreciation is not coming, let her know that, I feel I'm trying, but I feel you don't appreciate me. Talk to your wife and let her know. Maybe she doesn't even realize that she's not appreciating you. So talk about it and let her know that I'm trying, I'm doing my best. And if perhaps you have talked about it and she's not listening, get a third person, somebody she can listen to, somebody she respects, to talk to her, to understand that, I am trying, I want to do my best. I'm trying, I want to do my best, and I want you to appreciate me a little bit. That is how it works.
Talking about background, the way you put your question frames it interesting. He didn't do much by way of helping in the home growing up. So, he didn't see a male figure, adult father, perhaps, do those kinds of things in his home. It may be that he thinks he's doing a lot. And his wife, who may have come from a background where the men 50-50 did more than the women sometimes, may think her husband is not doing enough, doing much. We were talking with a couple once where the man was wondering when his wife would clean the living room,
No, he was complaining about the wife not taking care of the living room especially. And the wife was saying, in my house, my dad cleans the living room. So, to me, it is you who should do that. It's a man's job. That's what she thought. So,
and in his home,
it's the mom who cleaned it. So he thought that it's a woman's job. So it's for the two of you to talk about it. And maybe you think you are doing so much and your wife is not appreciating. You talk about it. And maybe the much that you think you are doing, your wife thinks you are not doing anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about it.
And let me say it for the men, because especially my brothers who are of African descent, I hear quite fundamentally all these things we do. The women don't even appreciate. They don't tell us they appreciate what we are doing. So ladies, please let us know you appreciate what we are doing, even the little that we do. It will encourage us to do more. And we the men, maybe the reason the women are not telling us they appreciate what we are doing is because we don't tell them we appreciate what they do. So we too need to learn to tell them we appreciate what they do for us in the home. But a wonderful question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good. Great. I have one here which is coming from Australia, and it says that, wait a minute, why should you be given a trophy for taking care of what you are supposed to take care of? You are a man. You decided to marry a woman. God has given you a responsibility. I don't see why we men sometimes we are so funny. When we are single, we aim for a woman to be with us. When a woman comes to stay with us, then we want to bossy over them. It's unacceptable. Mr. Crabbe, please let all men know that it is their godly responsibility and it's non-negotiable. They are the head of the home and they must partner with their spouses to control the home and to raise children. Good night. Bye from Australia.
Well, Australia has spoken.
Yeah, we agree, but it's good for the men to be encouraged when they're doing a good job.
Yes.
For us, the women, to praise them, just let them know. It helps them to do more. That is all we are saying. It's not like they are being given a trophy for what they should do, but we need to encourage them and appreciate them.
All right, so now let's go to Uganda, and this is from a lady. Say, hey, what are you talking about? When you give a man one space, he will walk over you. I have a personal experience. When I was going into marriage, my mother has told me that it is that it is my responsibility to be as submissive as I can and share or express my opinion to my husband in a way that will not create any form of conflict. An African man giving him that responsibility, my brother, you are worse off than anything. My husband will not even give me an opportunity to even contribute into a conversation. Guess what? Unfortunately, we are divorced now because I simply could not tolerate. He doesn't physically abuse me, but his words are more than physical abuse. So our marriage is over. I'm saddened by that, and I'm hearing new things today from your show. Please talk to me and let me see what I can do with my life again. Thank you. From Uganda.
Thank you, Miss Uganda. You know, it's sad that this happened to you. And, you know, as the saying goes, we wish this, you know, you had listened to this, your husband had listened to what we had to share before this, before that happened. You know, before your marriage became more difficult and broke up. This is why we were saying earlier, as men, we need to learn what it really takes to lead. The fact of the matter is that we will lead within our families like we have seen other people do it. You know, like we saw the male figures in our lives do. We've heard men who say, I never heard my father apologize. You know, does that mean you should not apologize when you know it is the right thing to do? Or you saw your father beating your mother, so you also want to beat your wife. If you do it now, you go to jail. You know. And this idea of the woman has to submit. Submission does not mean the woman has no voice. Men, we need to get it right. Husband, you know, she is to submit to the husband as the church submits to Christ. Do we not have a voice with Christ? Gentlemen listening, do we do everything Christ tells us to do? We read the word of God. Do we do exactly what it says? And when we do not, does God come after us? You, this is your first and last. Or, I don't want you in my house anymore. Is that how God shows that He's our leader? Is that how Jesus shows He's our leader? So when we have to lead as Christ led, we have to think carefully. No, as for this, I will never forgive. I will never forgive. So are there some things Jesus tells us, as for this, I will never forgive? Or, hey, Richard, this is the third time this week you have done this same thing. I'm not taking it anymore. Is that how He treats us? How does He talk to us? Even when we read His commandments and we do not follow them, He doesn't beat over our heads. He doesn't threaten us like we men sometimes do. He doesn't tell us, hey, you should know I'm your Lord. No. By His Spirit, often working quietly behind the scenes, He makes us willing to follow what He commands us to do. He opens our hearts to listen to Him. He doesn't threaten us. That's how we're to lead. And let us not say we are Africans. No, we are Asians. No, we are Americans. No, we come from Europe. So this is how men in Europe lead. Well, you can do it that way. It's not working in your marriage. Why continue? Any leader who tries to go down a path with his followers, it's not working and they tell him and it's not listening, what happens in the end? Rebellion. That leader is called a dictator. And rebellion follows. Unfortunately, marriage is divorce. Or it's a very unhappy and emotionally draining marriage. So let's do the right thing by each other and work with each other, you know.
Thank you very much about that. Another follow-up question coming from Texas, and it also says that in terms of wife's emotional needs, how does a husband effectively cater for that?
So talking about his leading emotionally, well, for one, ask her. You know, we sometimes we get into marriage or a relationship with a package of this is how women are like, this is how they want to be treated, this is how they should be treated. That could be so general, you will totally miss the mark with your friend, fiancé, or spouse. So the best person to learn from is the person herself. What are those emotional needs? What is she expecting from you? Last month we were discussing expectations, and we said the best way to know is to talk with the person. So ask her, what are some of the things that make you feel loved? What would you like me to do to make you feel loved, to make you feel emotionally satisfied in this marriage? You know, and good you use the word emotion, because you know somebody mentioned, I think it was the lady who talked of the words the husband, the lady from Uganda talked about the words the husband used on her. You know, there can be verbal abuse, but there cannot be abuse that can even be worse than verbal abuse. You know, denying the person affection. You know, denying any input for a decision. You know, some men vote themselves out of decisions and let the woman struggle with it. That's emotional abuse also. So she's, you know, racking her brains. One, how can I handle this? How should I handle this? The family needs help. The family, and he is, you know, in la la land, you know, and thinking, well, I'm keeping quiet because I want peace. No, that's not peace. That's wickedness, you know. And we need to respond to the emotional needs of our wives as well. Well, that's why you are called husband. You are, you know, she's yours. And you didn't bring her into your life to make her miserable. So, take care of that need as well, you know. Wonderful questions coming forward today. Let's have some more.
Another question coming from Kenya, and it says that I have listened to the show in the last 1.5 hours, and it looks like today the men are being taken off. But I know it's with good intention. But my question is, what are some practical ways that you can advise women, wives, to also appreciate and understand that irrespective of how resourceful they are, the man is still the head of the home, and it's, again, like others have mentioned, non-negotiable because it is divinely instructed. I am saying this thing because I painfully saw my parents divorce. We are from a very well-to-do family. My mother makes 6 figures. My father makes 6 figures as well. So it got to a point when we were growing, there's absolutely no control, because when my father speaks, my mother will speak 20 times. And in the end, they got separated. And so I don't want me to experience such problems in future. But what advice will you give women so they will practically appreciate the fact that men are indeed the head of the home?
Very simple. Respect the men. You know, we should know, the women should know that the man is the head of the house. So come into the, first of all, before you get married, make sure that you respect the man that you are falling in love with. If you are not respecting him, forget about the relationship altogether, because it's not going to work well. So first, you must respect your husband. Respect him as the head of the house. That is the first thing. Give him the due respect. He also will respect you. Yes, the man also has to respect the wife. If the respect is not there, you will have problems. So respect each other. And everybody, when you are doing your part and you are not looking down on each other, everything will work well.
Thank you. I just want to add this to it also, that it is important for women to understand that, you know, using threats and things like that, you know, men tend to be wired to fight, you know. So when ultimatums, if you don't do this, I will do this, if you don't do this, this will happen, Well, okay, bring it on, a man might say. So the approach is often important. We often hear, and I think often is the correct word, we often hear men saying, my wife doesn't respect me, And many times we've delved into that discussion. The issue is not so much, that she has told him she doesn't respect him, but you hear it's how she talks to him. Vivian used the word talking down to him. When a man, let's say, the man hasn't done something do very well, remember he's not your son. He's not your child. He's also an adult. Yes, maybe he did something very foolish, So yes, talk to him. Let him understand, reason with him. Of course, there are times you can get angry with what he's done. But if he words once spoken cannot be retrieved. This is when words once spoken cannot be retrieved. However much you say, I withdraw what I said. Even when we apologize for what we have said, the words can still be remembered. Do not go away easily. That's why some men, it frustrates the women even more. So the approach, how you talk to the man, is also important. And as I explained sometimes to the ladies, it is not so much what you have to say, but how you say it that can make the positive difference. You can have the best of reasons, person in an antagonistic or disrespectful manner in terms of how you speak to the person, and you would have lost an excellent opportunity to make a positive difference in your life. So this is important. Watch how you talk, and sometimes it's even when you talk. We've had, some mothers, wives, dressing down the husband with the kids around, a friend of the woman around, or a friend of the man. Sometimes, an in-law around, and that's hard to take, even without anybody around, and much more when somebody else is around, So let's watch these. It cuts both ways, yes. Some of you women are saying, but he also does the same. So yes, gentlemen, you take your piece. The question was, what can I tell the women? So that's what we have to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is from Nigeria. And it says that, well, my wife always used to use words that make me angry and annoyed. Once upon a time, she will continue to say, good for nothing but useless man. And so, gradually and slowly, I get losing confidence in her. Unfortunately, at work, I found somebody who respects me, who understands me, even though this person is not my wife. I feel that this other woman rather understands me and gives me attention and appreciation than my own wife. I am seriously thinking of divorcing my wife, but I want to give her an opportunity because when I saw the flyer that someone posted, I wanted to listen to this show and see what advice I could take away from. If nothing comes out from it, inshallah, I will divorce it.
Onwards.
Yes, but yes, you need to be appreciated, you need to be respected. Talk to your wife. Let her know. And as I said before, if you think she's not listening, get a third person to talk with her, somebody she respects, to let her understand. You see, first of all, if she's telling you you are a good-for-nothing man, she's also a good-for-nothing woman. Why did you marry a good-for-nothing man? You are also good for nothing. Telling your spouse that he or she is a fool, you are the first fool. That's who married the fool. So she should know that. And also, she's telling you good for nothing man, let her know that your eyes are going somewhere else. You see how jealous you'll be, how to be up in arms. So, and nobody plans to be unfaithful any day. But if you are not respecting your partner and somebody else is respecting him, his mind will go there. So what you need to do to guard against that infidelity is to let your wife know that the way you talk to me is not good. I feel demeaned when you talk to me like this. And if she's not listening, get someone else to talk with her for you both to understand and find out for, why does she talk like that? What's happening? That is why it's good to talk to a third person, so that the first will be the sounding board for both of you, listen to you and find out why she talks to you like that, and let her know that it's not good, so that she will learn and turn around. You can work it out. It can be good.
And our listener in Nigeria, all I'll say is, when someone posts the recording, why don't you listen to it with your wife? Then you can discuss it also afterward. It might be an eye-opener for her as well. Just as you said, you are giving chance. I don't know why we are your last chance. You have given us last chance. Give your wife last chance by allowing her also into the program. Please mute your phone. So, some more questions, or John?
Yes, John, maybe you have any questions?
No, keep going. I'm here. There's no questions here on this side.
Okay, great. So this is coming from Nepal, and it says that thank you guys so much for sharing all this beautiful knowledge. My wife and I, we just listened together and we learned a lot. We've had our own issues and our own problems with regards to the role of the man in the house. One practical problem that we've had many challenges with is the way we raise our children. I was raised from a military family, and so my wife does not understand me when I want to raise my children military way. Obey before complain. You get spanking when you misbehave. And every time I try to correct my children, my wife and I end up in arguing in front of the children. And so this show, we listened together because we wanted to help ourselves. What advice will you give to us as a way to seal our problem?
Talk and agree with each other behind closed doors before you get to the children. Once the children see that you are not agreed, you disagree before them, you have both lost it. They will play you against each other. Agree with each other. The thing is that the military way, what you are saying, obey before complain. When you are so strict that way, sometimes it will lead to rebellion. The children will rebel. It is good sometimes. Sit with them and talk with them and get to understand. Listen to the children also sometimes. When you are talking about this military type of training, makes me feel you have that mindset that children don't have a voice. So you have to tell them everything. They do have a voice. So sometimes listen to your wife also. Come to a good conclusion. Decide with your wife how it can be done. You need to listen to each other. That is how it works out. God gave you the children, both of you, to raise them. So you need to put your minds together. Some of what you are bringing is good, but listen to your wife also. And then you can work it out. And your children will turn out fine.
Amen.
Oh, thank you very much. So a question here. So we have financial issues. In our efforts to better our finances, we have tried so many business ventures but have failed. I know my wife brainstorms a lot and has a lot of ideas, but she fails in the implementation, and in any cases, most of her attempts at doing a business venture has failed. When I instruct her what to do, she has a problem, and when I keep quiet, she tells me, I don't care. This affects this is affects other aspects of our marital life. How do I live effectively in this situation? Everything I say, she has a critique of hers. So what do you think?
I think the key
Good question. There's a word I caught in the question. Our listener said everything he instructs her husband. His wife. maybe that's why she's not listening to you, because you are coming across as an instructor, and she wants a partner, a business partner, not a business instructor. And if you see you've tried many things and they failed, it means you were a part of it. It wasn't her alone. It might help both of you if you would talk to a third party who understands business. You don't have to share your whole business idea with them, but you can give something hypothetical. If somebody wanted to, run a taxi business, what are some of the things you think the person should know? Listen to what the person will say. Then the two of you come back and see how you can implement them. When you say your wife has problems with implementing, what do you mean? Is it the follow-through? Is it management of money? Because that's also part of implementation. What exactly? Then you can be, the more specific you are on the points where the problems come up, the easier it will be, or the better it will be for you to get help in that area. But it may well be you don't even know exactly. That's why we said talk to a third person that you both, an expert, somebody who's done well in business. Seek the person out and say, we need some advice, madam, can you please help us? We're thinking, if somebody's thinking about this, and like I said, you don't want to pass on your business idea. So you can choose some hypothetical and then ask and listen together. Don't tell you, don't instruct your wife to go and learn. Go with her, learn together, and instead of instructing, share ideas. Move from being teacher to partner, Then you will realize things will go much better, and it's not surprising it's affecting other aspects of your marriage as well. And I only hope you are not instructing her in the other aspects also. But even then, it may well be, yes, because the business isn't working well, the frustrations are being carried over into other aspects of your marriage as well. But again, over and over again, I'm just using this to tie a few things together. Listeners will realize, talk together, put your minds together. This is what marriage is about. It's not one person knowing everything. Today we've been discussing leadership. A leader doesn't know everything. In fact, if a leader knows everything, he doesn't need anyone else, you see. And a good leader is the one who can recognize a good idea, take it, acknowledge it, and then use it for the improvement or the betterment of the team. In this case, it could be husband and wife, or it could be husband, wife, and children, the whole family. So let's think of this. Motivating each other, guiding, inspiring, comforting, setting the example, protecting, setting the right boundaries, showing that we care, and doing all these things wrapped up in love. God will bless our relationships and marriage.
Wow. Wow. Well, I have three more, so I don't know if we can probably put them quickly and then
that will answer in the next 2-3 minutes, yes.
Yes, those people have really asked that I should ask those questions. So this is coming from New Zealand, and the question here is that men who are raised by men who are raised by women tend to behave in a certain way. My husband was raised by a woman, And so sometimes he's unwilling to pull his weight. He behaves just like a woman, and it's very frustrating in the house when things are not going well, and the husband, who is the head of the home, is not pulling his weight. And so we've had many discussions, and it only becomes a discussion and ends there. My husband lost his job 2 years ago, and he has a master's degree, and nothing motivates him to realize that it's a big problem and it's affecting the family, because he eventually become the breadwinner of the home. And it doesn't seem to pull his weight, and it's affecting our relationship. We've spoken to several marriage counselors, and whenever I bring the issue up, it becomes a fight between us. That why am I pushing her? Why am I pushing him? Why am I pushing him like that? Any advice?
Push him. Continue to push him. And don't only, talk to people who talk to him softly. Let someone put something in his senses to see that you should be the head. You should not sit and let your wife do all the job for you. Get out there and sweat and get something to come home. Don't be lazy about. Maybe he saw his mom did everything. He was brought up by his mom who did everything, so he thought that a woman can do it all. Let him get something into his senses that no, he has to be the head.
His mom did it all because no man was around. No father was there. He is the father now. He is the man. He has to man up and be the leader in his home. Next question.
Good. The next question here says that social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, and other networks have become a major distraction to millennials and young married couples. What can be done to cut down its effect on young marriages, especially the involvement of man as the head of the home?
Actually, we're planning a program on social media and your marriage. Stay tuned. Let's have your last question. But simply put, we had a statement earlier that as a man, the leader, you should maintain balance in your life, your career, work, everything. The balance, the right priorities should be set. Your family comes before everything else. Okay, let's have the last question then.
All right, the last question is coming from Zimbabwe, and it says that on what grounds will you make a woman the head of the home? On what grounds would a woman become the head of the home?
Okay, the two main ones I can think of is, well, let's first, when the man is absent, let's say he's traveled, he's working elsewhere, and the family is mother and the children in there. Don't wait for your husband before you take all decisions. Yes, you can discuss whether by phone or anything. The executing the leadership, the woman is there. There are widows who are in charge of their homes. They have no choice but to lead. They don't have to go and bring another man. To bring a man who may not be the husband to take decisions. There's that. And then there's some people who find themselves as single parents. We had the question from New Zealand where a man is brought up by a woman. And yes, there are, issues that may come up. But since Mother's Day that just passed last week, let's congratulate the mothers, widows, single mothers, and wives and mothers who have found themselves having to take leadership because their men are not around. Those are the three main areas where I can see the woman taking the leadership in the home. But if the man is there, don't give him an out. Get him to man up and be the leader in his home. All right. So thank you so much, Sammy and John and everyone for listening. Jacob, can you please close in prayer, give thanks to God for us, and then Lord willing, we'll be with you third Sunday in June. So stay tuned, and as the recording is posted, share with other people, discuss together with your friends, with your fiancés, your spouses, and let us have better homes, better men leading in the home and in family.